Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the sixth class of agriculture. I'm Dr. Shivan Chaudhary. If you can see and hear me, please write yes in the comments and we'll get started. Hello, good afternoon. All right. That's okay if you couldn't complete the last class, although वो सिर्फ 1 hour की थी, but you can watch it after this one also. बस आज देख लेना. That's okay. जो उसमें main topics थे, I've kept for today. All right. So today we are going to almost finish agriculture. I think just one or two topics will be left. I am good, Apeksha. Thank you for asking. Just one or two topics will be left. So today in agriculture, we're going to study some very, very important topics. Some of these topics actually have an intersection with environment and an intersection with disaster management also. So today, the first thing we're going to study is India's green revolution. So when we study about green revolution, we will get a context about how Indian agriculture has evolved. What were the phases of the green revolution, our necessities of the green revolution, and here we will understand why Indian agriculture is the way it is. From the green revolution, we need to understand a few things. There were certain shortcomings in this green revolution, and there were certain features that emerged out of this green revolution. One of the major shortcomings of the green revolution was because at that time it was not focusing on climate change, because it was not a major issue at that time. Why we were doing the green revolution and what were the major issues, we'll talk about that. But because of these shortcomings, climate change then became a problem. So now, as said by Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, we need a second green revolution, or we need something called climate smart agriculture. This is something we will study today. Now, from the green revolution emerged something called the idea of minimum support price. Why it emerged, we will understand. Then today, how is it calculated? On what crops it is given? What is the mechanism to give MSP? What are the potential issues in the Indian market as far as MSP is concerned? Should we legalize MSP? And then there is an idea of income support, that is something like PM Kisan. MSP is minimum support price. So price support versus income support, what is the idea? This we will study. Now, after we have understood these dimensions, we will also understand the broad framework of Indian agriculture as far as the ideas of agrarian distress, the ideas of loan waivers, the ideas of doubling farmers' income, the ideas of farmer suicides. Why are they happening and what are the solutions? This we will understand today. Other than this, we also have to read a couple of things which are small topics but might go on to the next class. One is the allied sector. In production, we notice that it is not only crop production that is agriculture. There is also the livestock sector, the fisheries sector, etc. This we have to understand. And this whole issue of minimum support price is linked to the larger issue of agricultural subsidies. And this subsidy issue then relates with our food security, our public distribution system, and our National Food Security Act. We will also understand broadly, in this context mainly, that what are the problems of policy in Indian agriculture. So what is the policy that is required for Indian agriculture across the spectrum of agriculture? Why our policy is the way it is? What are the problems in our current policy and what we can do to change it? So let us start with the Green Revolution. In Green Revolution, let us first understand the phases of the Green Revolution, why it came, its shortcomings, its features. Okay. Now, when we are speaking about the Green Revolution, firstly we have to understand what was the need of Green Revolution in India. This I have told you before, but at the time when the Green Revolution was happening, India was a net food importer. We did not have enough food to feed our population. We used to import food from abroad. One of the most popular programs we used to import from was the PL 480 program of the United States. In this PL 480 program, the US used to give us food grains. Now, there were two problems here. Firstly, it was seen that PL 480 always gave us low quality food grains. Of course, there was also a fiscal issue, a balance of payments issue because we were importing. And the main problem was of our strategic autonomy. Why? Because in 1962 and in 1965, we fight two wars. In 1965, when we are fighting the Pakistanis, US is allied with Pakistan, and US says that if you do not end the war, we will stop food subsidy to you. We will stop food import to you. So our decisions of foreign policy, our decisions of whatever we have to do to maintain our sovereignty were now independent, not independent, they were dependent on what the US was doing. So at that time, a need was felt to increase food productivity, to become self-sufficient in agriculture. Other than this, there was also a problem of Indian agriculture. Why were we not self-sufficient? Because stagnation had occurred in Indian agriculture. Indian agriculture had stagnated. So there was no great production that was happening. In this context, the Indian government says that we need to improve our food security, our food production, and we need to become self-sufficient. So, to become self-sufficient, the Green Revolution is launched. I'm sure you know about the basics of the Green Revolution, that high-yielding variety of seeds were introduced. The idea here was high-yielding variety of seeds. The idea here was of new technologies, of tractors, of mechanization, etc. Also to bring more land under agriculture. This was the idea at that time. So Green Revolution in India can basically be divided into three phases. So the first phase is from 1966 to 1972. What happens in the first phase? In the first phase, high-yielding variety of seeds are brought. But this would only improve the production. This is just an input measure. This would only mean that production has increased. But you also need that you have to take the food from the farm. Let's say at the farm production has increased. But you also have to do what? You also have to do proper procurement. Then you have to do proper distribution. Only then this food from the farm goes to the plate. So for farm production, the intervention that we made was high yielding variety of seeds. But as far as procurement is concerned, there were two interventions that were made. Firstly, the Food Corporation of India is set up, which is supposed to procure and also supposed to create buffer stocks in case there is a drought. Okay. The other thing that is introduced at this time is minimum support price for the farmer. Because Indian agriculture is struggling, so we tell the farmer that you use greater inputs. You produce as much as you can, and we will give you a minimum support price, because this amount of price, whatever price you are investing in, what is your cost, we will give you price above that with certain profit to support you, and this is minimum price. So regardless of what you produce, let's say you produce 100 kg of wheat, minimum we are going to pay you 1500 rupees. There is no upper limit. This is what is said at this time in the first phase. So in the first phase, there is high yielding variety, FCI and MSP. What is the result of the first phase? The result of the first phase is that India massively improves its grain production. We almost become self-sufficient in agriculture. And because of these interventions of price support, this can be called price support. Because of the intervention of price support, rural poverty in India starts to decline. So the number that of rural poverty that existed in India at that time was 64%, and it goes down to about 56%. So in the first phase, we have FCI, MSP, high yielding variety, increase in our self-sufficiency and decline in rural poverty. The second phase of the Green Revolution starts from 1973 and goes on to 1980. Now in 1973, there are 2 consecutive droughts in the country because of a failed monsoon. So here it is then seen that Green Revolution must be introduced in those areas where irrigation is guaranteed. So therefore, the Green Revolution becomes something that we introduce only in certain states. And which states? States which already have good irrigation infrastructure. So it is introduced in Punjab, in Haryana, in Western UP, and some parts of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. The other areas of the country are ignored. Why? Because we are facing this dependency, we have to quickly improve our production. We don't have time for balanced regional development. After these 2 droughts, what happens? We notice that there is a need to improve agricultural production even further because we might face a drought. So, other than all the measures that we have seen here of FCI, of MSP, certain other measures are done. This is the time when Srimati Indira Gandhi is the Prime Minister. She has done nationalization of banks. So the nationalized banks are asked to give better agricultural credit. And this is successful to some extent. Then they say that fertilizers is something that we need to focus on. So in the second phase of the green...
I found this on the web for fertilizer.
Sorry, my phone has searched for, Siri has started to search for fertilizers. I'm really sorry. Yeah. So in the second phase, what happens is, we say that this is not enough for farm productivity. Some other things are also needed. What are the other things that are needed? Fertilizers, we need to give subsidy, so that fertilizers are used and farm productivity is increased further. Now, which fertilizer subsidy are you giving? You are giving urea subsidy. The second thing they say is that irrigation is something that is very important for sustaining the Green Revolution. If irrigation is important for sustaining the Green Revolution, I have to give power subsidy to ensure that groundwater extraction keeps happening. Okay. So fertilizer subsidy is given and power subsidy is given to extract groundwater to ensure that the Green Revolution here in its second phase can sustain and agricultural credit is given. Now, what is the result of this? The result of this is similar to the first one, where again rural poverty is reduced. So from this number of 56%, rural poverty comes down now to 50%. And the high yielding variety from wheat initially is now extended to rice. This is the second phase of the Green Revolution. The third phase of the Green Revolution starts in 1981. and goes on till 1990. Now, what is the characteristic feature of the third phase? In the third phase of the Green Revolution, we have achieved food self-sufficiency. Okay, we have achieved food self-sufficiency. It is not a problem. We have created buffer stocks for rice and wheat because they are high yielding varieties and they are being focused on in price support and non-price support both. So we are giving power, fertilizers, we are giving price support, we have FCI, we have high yielding varieties. Mechanization is being brought, more land is being brought into agriculture. So food self-sufficiency has been achieved. Now we realize that the high yielding varieties must also be taken to the other parts of the country. So then they start spreading to the east. But this is very late. Till this time, Naxalism has already happened in India. So because Naxalism has already happened in India, why? Because initial distribution was not balanced regionally. Then the problem is that these high yielding varieties, it has been 20 years since they have been introduced, approximately 20 years since they have been introduced, their yield starts declining. Initially, they were giving very high yield and there was a lot of growth, but ultimately yield starts declining. When yield starts declining, we now face a crisis. We have to maintain production levels, but the major thing that was increasing our yield has now declined. So what do? We give more fertilizer subsidies. We give more power subsidies. We extract more groundwater. Now, the other thing that happens here is something called adverse, this is an important concept, terms of trade for agriculture. Now, what does this mean? Terms of trade means, name is clear, terms, basically, what is the balance or what is the negotiation, price, income, supply, demand mismatch between two people. So let's say there are two countries, India and China. What are the terms in their trade? Who is getting the better price? Who has the greater demand, etc. Now here we are comparing the terms of trade between the agricultural sector and the industrial sector. From the second 5-year plan, we start focusing on industrialization. We put import restrictions. We say that we have to promote capital goods industry. Okay. So as far as the industrial sector is concerned, we are giving it all the possible price support that we can. But as far as the agricultural sector is concerned, we are pro-consumer in our outlook. We are saying that our first focus is food security. So our agricultural price policy is focused on the fact that from agriculture, we must get, every consumer must get proper food, regardless of whether every farmer gets the amount of money that is required for them. So what happens is that industrial goods are being promoted. We want to develop the capital goods industry, we want to export. In agriculture, we are mainly focused on subsidies. So if a farmer is here in the agricultural sector, the price of what he is producing in the name of food security starts going lower and lower. We want food to be as cheap as possible. But the cost of industrial products, because there is import restrictions, the cost of industrial products is high. So if the farmer has to buy an industrial product, the price here is high. But if a farmer has to sell to an industrialist, because of our pro-consumer policies, the price is low. So the terms of trade between the agricultural sector and the industrial sector are heavily in favor of the industrial sector. So in industrial sector, you will see that price realization is happening, but here price realization was not happening. Now, looking at the three phases of the green revolution, what can we say about Indian agriculture today? Firstly, Indian agriculture has a problem of excessive focus on the rice wheat system. This is clear. We all know this, that rice wheat system is something we focus on. We have a problem with our subsidy regime. We are giving excessive subsidies in fertilizers, that too excessive in urea, and we have seen this. We have a problem with power subsidy regime, and this is leading to extraction of groundwater. Then what can we say? Indian agriculture is always pro-consumer. So it is always about consumers getting the cheapest food. And lastly, to account for these pro-consumer policies, to offset these pro-consumer policies, we have a system of minimum support price. So everything that exists in Indian agriculture today can be traced back to the things that happened in the Green Revolution. Is this much clear so far? Vishal, by tonight. I'll upload by tonight. Is this clear so far? Okay. So if we look at the Green Revolution in general, it had certain achievements. It had certain problems. Firstly, let's focus on the achievements of the Green Revolution. So what were the achievements that the Green Revolution had? At the farm level, it was able to increase production. It was able to increase farmer incomes. It was also able to do poverty reduction. Why was it able to do poverty reduction? Because there was now need of more laborers in the farms. So people who owned land got better incomes, and people who did not own land got opportunities to work at the farm. Then it gave an input to some industries, such as the food processing industry now became something that could grow. Why could it grow? Because the Green Revolution had focused on rice and wheat system. It also gave an input to the machinery of agriculture, because we want to mechanize agriculture in India. So agricultural machinery industry gets an input. From a net food importer, from a nation which has a bowl in its hand asking for wheat, we become the supplier of the world. So we become a net food exporter. This is the achievement. And if we are a net food exporter, of course, we have food security. So these achievements were there. But it also created certain problems for Indian agriculture that exist today also. The main problem of the Green Revolution was it was limited. Limited in terms of first areas where it was spread, mainly in the northwestern part of the country and some southern areas of the country. It was limited in terms of cereals, not focusing on crop diversification. It was limited to the idea of wheat and rice system. Then the high yielding varieties that came were only for 5 crops: wheat, jawar, bajra, maize, and rice. Only 5. So the other crops, the non-staple crops, got ignored in terms of policy and got ignored in terms of high yielding variety of seeds. Then it created problems on our economy because of the subsidy burden and the problem of minimum support price. India's fiscal deficit gets adversely impacted because of the green revolution, especially in the nature in which it is carried out. And the last problem, and the most major problem, is its environmental impact. So, in terms of fertilizers, in terms of pesticides, right? In terms of the idea that water extraction is now very high. Since they are extracting groundwater and there are power subsidies, also because certain bigger farmers are now getting more remunerative agriculture, it starts creating inequalities in Indian agriculture. Okay. Now, these problems we have read about. We have read about the problem of seeds, the problem of fertilizers, pesticides, etc. They are coming from the Green Revolution. Okay. Now, from the Green Revolution, there are two major issues that we now need to study. Firstly, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan has said, actually, both the issues we are going to read are going to have a lot of focus on Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. So, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan has said that India now needs a second green revolution, or India needs an evergreen revolution. This evergreen revolution will be what? It will be agricultural productivity will be boosted, but it will be a climate smart agriculture. It will not be agriculture which is only focused on brute force production increase. It will be focused on understanding the vagaries of climate, and agriculture will be tailored to the changes that are happening in climate. So it will be climate smart agriculture. This is the first thing. The other thing we have to read with regards to this is the idea of minimum support prices. Now we know why it had come. In today's world, how is MSP calculated? What are the formulas? What are the debates? And is MSP something that should be legalized, or is there a better solution? And this question is heavily expected in this year's mains, because it's directly in the syllabus also, and there have been farmers' protests just before the election for legalizing of MSP. So let us now read about these two issues. Firstly, we have to understand climate smart agriculture. Now, if we look at climate smart agriculture, second green revolution or evergreen revolution, we have to understand a few things. Firstly, agriculture and climate change are linked to each other. Okay. Firstly, we'll understand how these linkages come. Then we'll understand what is the need of climate smart agriculture, what are its components, and what can we do to have climate smart agriculture or an evergreen revolution in India. Okay. Now, let's start with the linkages between climate and agriculture, and now your job starts. I will write climate change on one side, and I will write agriculture on the other side. First, you have to tell me how agriculture impacts climate change. You have 2 minutes to tell me this. How agriculture impacts climate change. Whatever you say, I will keep writing on the board, but you must write in a particular order. Yes. You have written release of methane. I will write release of greenhouse gases from things like rice. What else? Greenhouse gas emission is done. There is an issue of fertilizers and the possible impact they have on climate. Similarly, the use of pesticides in agriculture has an impact on climate. What are the other things? Good. Power subsidies is something we just read about. So power being used in agriculture, where is that power coming from? How is it being generated is a problem. There is a problem of groundwater depletion. Very good. The idea of stubble burning. No, monocropping is a type of, okay, I'll write groundwater depletion is written. Monocropping is a type of cropping pattern. What impact does monocropping have? That you have to tell me. Other than writing slash and burn agriculture, you can write things like land use change to improve the productivity of Indian agriculture. What do we have to do? We have to bring more land into agriculture. So it will lead to deforestation. Then agriculture is not only crops, the idea of livestock, the methane and greenhouse gas emissions that are happening here. This is also something that is happening when agriculture impacts climate change. Okay. Now the second question, and probably the more important question, is how does climate change impact agriculture? Again, you have 2 minutes. And in these 2 minutes, you are supposed to tell me how does climate change impact agriculture? Good. Climate change will lead to change in the patterns of rainfall. So areas that are unirrigated will have a problem. What else? We read about, very good, we read about the issues of locusts. So pests, diseases. This is something that climate change has an impact on as far as agriculture is concerned. Yes, ideas like forest fires, or even ideas like the decline of soil productivity due to, let's say, droughts or due to floods at the wrong time. It has an impact on productivity of soil. It has an impact in terms of water. It has an impact almost in every input factor of agriculture. Right? Good. Things like heat waves. Have an impact. What else? Rainfall pattern change we have seen. What else? Soil salinity. Yes, in terms of soil productivity, we have seen. Sea level rise and flooding. Okay. Okay. Now, so largely what we are seeing in terms of climate change's impact on Indian agriculture or agriculture in general, climate change will lead to declining agricultural productivity. Climate change will lead to declining farmer income. And if the economic survey is to be believed, 15% of Indian agriculture is vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So definitely there are a lot of interlinkages between climate and agriculture. Now, what is the need for climate smart agriculture? This is one of the reasons that they are very interlinked. But we now have to understand that what is the need for climate smart agriculture. So if we look at what is going to happen in the world in the next few years, and this is coming directly from the Ashok Dalwai panel report, they say that by 2050, there will be a huge increase in Indian, or huge increase in world population, almost by 2 billion. So 2 billion people will be added by 2050. Most of this increase is going to happen in developing countries and in cities. So this increase, most of it is going to happen in developing countries and it is going to happen in cities. Since most of this increase is going to happen in developing countries and cities, we need now to increase agricultural productivity. We need to increase agricultural productivity to ensure that this increase in population is fed. So we need to increase productivity of agriculture by 60%. This is a huge number. The problem here is that climate change by 2050 will do what? Decrease agricultural productivity, decrease farmers' income, increase variability in terms of drought, variability in terms of the rainfall patterns that are existing. So therefore, we need to transform agriculture. Transform agriculture in 3 ways. Transform agriculture, one, to ensure food security. Transform agriculture to ensure that the emissions that are coming from agriculture, they need to be reduced. This is what? Mitigation. I hope you know the meaning of this word. And thirdly, we need to transform agriculture to be resilient to climate change. This is what? Adaptation. So we need to transform agriculture so that productivity is increased, so that food security can be increased. Emissions from agriculture are low, so it contributes less to climate change. And whatever climate change has happened, we need to have resilience. Now, these 3 things are the exact 3 pillars of the idea of climate smart agriculture. So climate smart agriculture has 3 pillars that are mentioned on the board in front of you. Okay. Now, let us look at some data with regards to climate smart agriculture, especially in the Indian context. So we started off with the Green Revolution. We have read about the Green Revolution in detail. Now this is agrarian distress and we'll come to it, but I'm teaching you climate smart agriculture first. It's also in the notes today only. Let me just scroll down to that. Yeah. So there are 3 pillars of climate smart agriculture. 1, increase productivity. 2 is enhance resilience. And 3 is reduce emissions. So what are the facts? Firstly, 1/3 of global emissions are actually coming from agri-food systems. And because of this projection of 9.7 billion people, we will need to increase our agricultural productivity. So what are the needs for climate smart agriculture? There is going to be population growth. Rain-fed crops are going to be more vulnerable. Because of rising CO2 levels, rising greenhouse gases, and vulnerabilities in climate, there is going to be a threat to food security. Climate change impacts crop productivity. For example, in India, if there is a 1 to 2 degree increase in the temperature, it will lead to a significant reduction in the yields of rice and wheat. This is in the economic survey of last year. Then it leads to livestock stress, rainfall stress, pest increase and proliferate because of climate change. And agriculture, there is a dual challenge. So agriculture is vulnerable to climate change and agriculture also contributes to climate change. So there is a need for climate smart agriculture in India. Why? Because 51% of India's cultivated area is rain-fed. What did we read? Indian agriculture is a gamble on the monsoon. And if the monsoon changes, this will become a problem. Already, there has been an increase of about 0.7 degrees. There have been changes in rainfall patterns and increased drought frequency in India. So India definitely needs climate smart agriculture. This is for sure. Okay. Now, here we need to understand, we have seen the pest behavior, let's say locust attack, etc. There are certain notable climate resilient technologies. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. So there are certain notable climate resilient technologies. For example, zero till planting of wheat, such as things like happy seeder. I think now it should be fine. Yeah. So zero till planting and wheat, things like happy seeder, techniques like mulching, where you conserve the moisture of the soil within the soil. Then there is the idea of crop diversification. Crop diversification going away from rice and wheat system to climate smart crops. Example of climate smart crop is millets. Integration of crop residues. Conservation agriculture, going for precision farming. So using technology to ensure that at the level of the field, technology can ensure that input management is done better, resource management is done better, and we also need to improve our livestock management. Now, we know we need climate smart agriculture, right? So there is definitely a need for climate smart agriculture. What are the challenges? This you have to tell me. And this should now be something that you understand. I am assuming now that if you have watched all the classes so far with me, you are someone who can now think in an agriculture question. It should not be a problem. So what are the challenges of climate smart agriculture? Think in the same agricultural supply chain that we generally think in. You have 2 minutes. Good. There is a fund challenge, a technology challenge. So there is a cost challenge. There is a technology challenge. What else? There is a regulation challenge. Yes, in technology, you can write challenges with regards to access, challenges with regards to the idea of people not being accepting of knowledge, us not having proper extension systems. In cost, there is an issue of all inputs, every single input that is there in agriculture will have to be managed better. So there is a challenge in input in terms of high cost. There is also a challenge in terms of market opportunities that will exist. Because if you are putting in high cost at the input stage, it must be realized at the stage of market. So there are challenges in terms of cost of input and market opportunities, in terms of technology, in terms of extension services, access and knowledge, in terms of regulation. How will you regulate? But there are two other very significant challenges here, other than this. Firstly, it is defining the metrics. How do you define what is climate smart agriculture? The science is so complex that to define the metrics that okay, this features, if done, only then it is climate smart agriculture. This is a major challenge. Then the second challenge is the variability is a constant. Climate change is constantly happening. So there is huge variability. So this is also an issue, right? So there are challenges in these terms. Now, if you have to think about it, there is a recommendation by the Standing Committee on Agriculture given in this year only. In this year, the Standing Committee on Agriculture has given recommendations on how climate smart agriculture can be practiced in India. So let us think what they must have said. They must have spoken about something in terms of input management, something in terms of production management, something in terms of marketing management, or rather post production or marketing, whatever we want to write. And they must have given some overarching policy suggestions for agriculture. So what are these recommendations? Firstly, for input, they say that we need whatever problems are there, we need to solve here. In input, we need to have better crops. So we need to have things like millets. We need to do more research and development. We need to focus on Krishi Vikas Kendra. And we need to have better extension services. Then they say to promote awareness, climate smart agriculture as an idea must be given to village panchayats. Then when it comes to production, they say that there is a need for diversification in agriculture. There is a need for going for organic farming and zero budget natural farming. They also say that production, while going for these things, cannot forget about the issue of food security. Then, as far as marketing is concerned, they say that establish carbon markets even for agriculture. And they say that enhance the traceability of agricultural produce. Now, this traceability, this term you will understand as soon as you see the recorded lecture. It is linked to the idea of supply chain management. As soon as you see, you will understand why this is written here. Now, there are also two other policy recommendations. Firstly, they say that you need to create a national agricultural disaster management agency which deals with this idea of changing rainfall, of droughts happening. This NADMA must be created, and this NADMA will deal with the ideas. It is a national nodal agency to deal with the ideas of disasters related to agriculture. They also have talked in very much detail about the NICRA scheme. NICRA is National Innovations in Climate Resilient Agriculture. In this NICRA scheme, which was started by the Indian Council on Agricultural Research, they have focused on CRVs, climate resilient villages. So again, at the Gram Panchayat level, at the village Panchayat level, we need to have the idea of climate resilience. So this NICRA scheme has been told by this standing committee that we need to implement this NICRA scheme and implement the idea of climate resilient villages. When we are implementing the idea of climate resilient villages, we are going to have community involvement in the idea of climate smart agriculture. Like we have read about custom hiring centers, like we have read about village management committees, seed village banks, those water user associations, those things are going to be done. And then even our resource management and crop production, this is going to be focused on. So if we look at the idea of climate smart agriculture, there is a need for it. There are linkages between climate change and agriculture. In the Indian context, we have seen the data. In the Indian context, we have seen the challenges and the recommendations of the standing committee, especially with the NADMA and NICRA. Okay. This is the idea of climate smart agriculture, or as we can call it, a second green revolution. This second green revolution will be an evergreen revolution. If you get a question on second green revolution, you have to use this term and you have to mention Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. Okay, you have to mention this. All right. Now, all right. Now, here in the production stage, two important terms we have seen: organic farming and zero budget natural farming. So let us now read about these two. Firstly, we will read about zero budget natural farming. I am sure for your prelims preparation, you have read something or the other about ZBNF. Right? It has four components. That is Jeevamrut, Bijamrut, Achhadana, and Vapasa. There are four components. I'm sure you've read that. You know about Subhash Palekarji, who has come up with this idea. What I want you to now study, or actually I want you to brainstorm, because this is something you already know. Just giving you 2 minutes. Tell me what will be the benefits of ZBNF, and then we will think about the challenges. So I want you to brainstorm now the benefits of zero budget natural farming, and let's apply our brain and think about what benefits could possibly be there. Try to think about various stakeholders. So farmer is going to have certain benefits. The environment is going to have certain benefits. The consumer is going to have certain benefits if we practice zero budget natural farming. Very good. Consumers will get nutritious food. Good. Farmers' cost of production will go down. Farmers will have better soil fertility. So their productivity of their farm will increase. What else? Good. Environmentally, we are going to face less burden in terms of pollution from fertilizers and pesticides. What else? Yes, it is going to promote biodiversity, because the idea of integrated pest management, is akin to the idea of zero budget natural farming. So it is going to promote biodiversity for sure. What else? Soil aeration, soil fertility, we have already seen. Thank you. Benefits में लिखो ना. It goes with the idea of climate smart agriculture. It will lead to better water conservation. It will lead to better agroeconomic practices. It will also give the farmer the opportunity to export better, because the sanitary and phytosanitary measure problem will be gone. But if ZBNF was so good, every farmer in the country would have adopted it by now. So definitely ZBNF has certain issues. Now again with me, start brainstorming the issues that afflict zero budget natural farming. What are the issues that plague zero budget natural farming? Good. The biggest problem is that the productivity increase that was promised is not there. The yield is still low. So when productivity does not increase and yield stays low, what do the farmers do? They revert back to conventional farming. This is the first problem. Then, correct, there is no proper awareness and knowledge. Awareness and knowledge is not there. What else? If you look at the budgetary allocations that the government has done, budgetary allocations done for organic farming and zero budget natural farming are much lower when compared to the budgetary allocations done for green revolution like schemes. So the budgetary allocation for the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana is more than 3,000 crores. Here it is only 300 crores. There is hesitancy, it is not a quick solution, there is lack of knowledge, there is uncertainty, then it relies heavily on cow urine. But Indian breeds of cows are declining. So these are the issues when it comes to ZBNF, right? Now, what are the steps taken? Steps taken for ZBNF obviously is one is promotion of all of these factors, but there is the Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati scheme, which specifically focuses on ZBNF that has been adopted. It is a sub scheme of the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. So this step has also been taken. Now, if we have seen the issues, what is the way forward to solve this problem? The way forward to solve this problem is, since there is lack of awareness, you need to have farmer education. Once you have done enough farmer education, you also need to focus on this issue of cow breeds. What else? We have to enhance research and development in ZBNF so that it does not lead to a productivity loss. Otherwise, farmers will not adopt it. And we have to link it to the market. If consumers do not demand organic produce, farmers will not grow organic produce. Then government needs to give more budgetary support. So government support needs to be better. What else? Good. We need to focus on agricultural extension. Now, why have I written it like this here? This is the way you should make your notes in your notebook. Just the keywords. अब यहां देख के मुझे सब याद आ जाना चाहिए. नहीं आता तो मैं बड़े वाले नोट्स देखूं. But this should be enough for you to remember everything. Okay. Now, let us now come to the idea of organic farming. Firstly, I hope you know that zero budget natural farming and organic farming are very different. ZBNF says that I will not put any input from outside the farm. I will almost have a zero budget as far as input is concerned. Farming will be natural. Natural processes will be followed. No external inputs will be given, or very less external inputs will be given. Organic farming says that whatever inputs I give will be organic inputs. For example, I will give certified organic fertilizers, which are in the form of manure. I will give fertilizers, but they will be certified to be organic fertilizers. I will do pest management through organic means. Here it says I will not give or add any input. So organic farming is slightly different from the idea of zero budget natural farming. Although if we have to do an analysis in terms of benefits, issues, they are pretty much the same. Now there is some data with regards to organic farming that we must study. This is that recommendation of the Climate Smart Agriculture Committee, which has been given in 2023-24. These are the recommendations. We've already read about these. We've also read about the NICRA scheme, the idea of climate resilient villages. If the question comes this year, I will expect you to write a very good answer. This is then about zero budget natural farming. We have seen there it has 4 pillars, and assuming this much you already know. We've seen what are its benefits. We know what are its problems, the steps taken and what we can do. Now, similarly for organic farming, certain data has been given in this year's economic survey. So it says that the area under organic farming now is about this much, 68 lakh hectares. And Sikkim is a fully organic state. And other states are also, like Tripura and Uttarakhand, have also set similar targets. India is first in the world in the number of organic farmers and ninth in terms of area under organic farming. 51% increase is there in production of organic products. Organic exports have also witnessed about 50% increase. Why? Because after the pandemic, globally, there has been centricity of the idea of health and wellness. And health and wellness is directly connected to our diet. So we should try and eat as healthy produce as we can, because diet is very heavily linked to the idea of our health and wellness. अब ये ज्ञान मैं preach तो बहुत करता हूँ, but maybe अगर मैं थोड़ा ये follow भी खुद कर लूँ तो I will be happier. But junk food खाने की आदत बहुत ज़्यादा है, मुझे भी और आपको भी. So we should also learn from this and try to eat organic natural produce. Now, organic farming ka idea we understand. Now what we have to understand is what are the steps taken. Here I need to tell you a couple of things. So there are 2 schemes for organic farming in India that are mainly functioning. Okay. There are 2 schemes. One is Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. In Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, there is the idea of participatory guarantee scheme. Then there is NPOP. NPOP is a scheme where you have National Program for Organic Production, where there is certification. Right? Now there are 2 problems here. Okay. Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. Here there is participatory guarantee scheme. So many farmers can come together. It follows a cluster-based approach. See, the main issue with regards to organic farming, although we will discuss the issues in detail, the main issue with regards to organic farming is the issue of certification. How will you certify that this particular farm is an organic farm? There are 2 approaches now. The first one is the participatory guarantee scheme. In participatory guarantee scheme, what does the government say? That in a cluster-based approach, various farmers will come together, and when these various farmers will come together, they can together tell the government that we are doing organic production, and after light verification, this will be accepted. That there is a cluster, many farmers can come together and they are telling the government that we are going to do organic production. So participative guarantee. So all are participating and they are giving a guarantee to the government that we are doing organic production. So here certification is easy. But what is the challenge? Indian government might accept this certification. European countries don't. So the same barriers of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the technical barriers to trade, they come in when we have to export produce under the participatory guarantee scheme. If I look at the National Program for Organic Production, here it takes 3 years to verify and say that this farm is particularly an organic farm. So if it takes 3 years for this certification to happen, it becomes a problem. Because which farmer is going to wait 3 years before the export can be done? After you get this export certification, you can export. But here the certification is difficult, and here the certification is easy, but there are further difficulties. These are the major problems with regards to the steps or the government schemes that we have with regards to organic farming. Now you have to tell me, benefits of organic farming are clear. They are basic. I'm not going to teach you that. I hope you can do that on your own. But you have to tell me the issues in organic farming in India. Some issues are similar to zero budget natural farming, but let's talk of issues of organic farming. And again, let us talk of the same idea: input, production, and marketing. What are the issues? Tell me. Good. Organic inputs need to be available and they need to be affordable. Otherwise, people will not switch. What is the other problem? Certification we will write in production. Certification, of course, is one of the major issues. You look at the fact that pest management without chemical fertilizers is always going to be a problem. Then here you will also need knowledge and training. You will need extension services, which have a certain issue. Then when we come to production, a farmer will not adopt a system which does not guarantee a proper yield. Then of course there is a certification issue. What else? One major issue in certification and issue actually in production is contamination. So when water is running off from one field to the other, contamination can happen. Maybe my farm is organic, but the farm at my side, my neighboring farm is not organic. So contamination from chemical pesticides that are sprayed in the air or fertilizers that are mixed with the water can happen. That is why the government says it must be a cluster-based participatory guarantee scheme. Then, in terms of marketing, firstly, consumer awareness is not there. This is a major problem. Then there is also the problem of market access, especially with regards to exports. Because again, the sanitary and phytosanitary measures depend on this certification. So there are issues at all levels. Now, if we have to look at a way forward, right? If I have to look at a way forward for the issue of organic farming, I just have to do all of these. I can write that the input should be made available, should be made affordable, extension services need to be better, pest management needs to be done in the form of integrated pest management, yield needs to be focused on, certification needs to be easier, bureaucratic hurdles need to be forgotten, contamination can be solved by participatory guarantee scheme, consumer awareness needs to be increased, access, especially to the international markets, need to be increased through better negotiations. So this problem again of writing way forward is not going to be there here. Okay. Now I'm going to teach you something that we started with. Was the idea of the green revolution in India. Okay. When we started with the green revolution in India, we understood that we have to read about climate smart agriculture. And from here, we have also read the issue of organic farming and zero budget natural farming. We have also understood green revolution in its phases, its shortcomings, its features. Now we are going to read this topic. MSP is a major topic, very, very important for this year. And I would want, even if you are someone who is giving means this year and you are watching this recorded, whatever I'm going to write on the board now, at least you write with me, because this question is very likely. Everything is in your notes, but if you write with me, you will have a couple of pages on MSP, which will be able to answer any particular question that you have. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a break of 2 minutes, or rather 3 minutes break before I start the topic of minimum support price. So I'm giving you a break of 3 minutes. Then we will talk about minimum support price. आई होप सबको मजा आ रहा है DFP में. अभी तो बचा है थोड़ा टाइम ब्रेक में. आई होप एवरीबॉडी इज एंजॉयिंग दिस. It is taking me a lot of effort, honestly, to get this done, but I am enjoying it. And from the chats that I am able to read from what you are writing, I am able to understand that you've actually learned to think. वो सोचना आना सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है. अगर सोचना आ जाएगा तो बाकी चीजें फिर उतनी मुश्किल नहीं है. 3-3 घंटे सो रहा हूँ विवेक रोज. ये जो डार्क सर्कल्स हैं आंखों के नीचे, they are a product of me studying the reports of various committees. है ना. चलो, let us read about minimum support price. देखो, minimum support price क्या है? In minimum support price, we are telling the farmer that regardless of, we are saying that you produce, let's say wheat. You produce wheat. Now, ideally, let's say I have produced 100 kg of wheat. Okay. Ideally, how should the price of this wheat be determined? It is not wheat के दानों के ऊपर तो लिखा नहीं है, right? wheat के दानों के ऊपर तो लिखा नहीं है कि इनकी cost क्या है. How should the price of this wheat be determined? Price of anything is determined only by two things: the demand and the supply. So ideally, it should be a demand supply metric, that what is the demand for wheat, what is the supply for wheat. But we have seen that we were in a condition when the green revolution was happening, when we needed to increase production of wheat at all costs. Also, it is not that the farmer is selling directly to the consumer. So there are multiple intermediaries before finally the consumer will come. So this demand supply and price discovery is a problem. So we say to the farmer that you produce wheat, and we will give you a floor price. What is floor price? That this is the bottom level of price. When you have to sell your wheat, and I've told you APMC में मैंने आपको पढ़ाया है, APMC में the price discovery is going to happen, auction is going to happen. If after the auctioning of your produce, the price of your produce that you are getting is below this particular floor, let's say I say 2000 kgs per 100 kg of wheat. If in the auction you are getting lower than this, you can come and sell this to the government. So this is the floor price. We will buy at minimum support price. If you are getting greater than minimum support price, it is not a problem. So regardless of what is the demand in the market, even if every Indian today takes a pledge that I will not even eat 1 grain of wheat, a farmer who produces wheat, 100 kg wheat, is going to be paid rupees 2000. Now, how are you going to make this payment? This is the idea of minimum support price. It is the minimum floor price that you will get regardless of the market demand of your produce. Regardless of what the price discovery happens, you are going to get this minimum price. Now, there are two things. Firstly, you have said that there is a minimum support price. Firstly, how do you calculate it? So there are three ways of calculating minimum support price. One is called A2 formula. A2 means that we will take into account the cost of inputs that you have put into your field. You have used certain seeds, certain fertilizers, certain pesticides, certain machines, etc. This is the cost of inputs. This is the first thing I'm going to calculate. I can then say that, let's say, to produce 100 kg wheat, you paid actually 1000 rupees of input. So I can give you 1500 rupees. That way you are making a profit of 500 rupees on every 100 kg of wheat. Right? This is one thing. Then they say, the second formula says that no, in my field, okay, in my field, there are 4 people working. One is me, myself. Second is my mother, my brother, and my sister. So 4 people are working. But I am not going to pay these 3 people. My mother, brother, and sister will not ask for a salary from me. So they say that there is certain family labor that is working in the field. If they were outside laborers, if I did not have anyone in my family who was working in the field, it was just me and I had hired 3 laborers. To these 3 laborers, I would have paid a salary, or rather, I would have paid some wages. But if I have family labor of 3, to them I am not paying any wage. Since I am not paying any wage to this family labor, I must impute the cost. मैं पे नहीं कर रहा हूं एक्चुअली अपनी फैमिली को, बट अगर 3 लेबरर बाहर के होते तो उनको तो मैं वेजेस पे करता. So this should be added to my cost of input. So it should be my cost of input plus imputed cost. Actual cost nahi, imputed cost. What does imputed cost mean? I am not actually paying. But if there were extra laborers, I would have paid this much. So imputed cost of family labor. This is the second formula, A2 plus FL. Now, the other formula says that along with the cost of inputs and imputed cost, there are 2 other things. There is land and there is machinery. In land, I could have said that this is my field of, let's say, 1 hectare. You take my field and just give me some rent. Give me rent of 10,000 rupees a year and you produce whatever you want to on my field. I could have done this, but I am choosing not to do this and produce myself. Similarly, my machinery that I have, even simple machinery like plows, like let's say tractors, I could have given them on rent and had a rent that I would have received. But I am not doing this. I am actually using my land and I'm using my machinery to produce. So they say that the cost imputed rent of land. Similarly, same idea of imputed cost, imputed rent on my land and imputed rent on my machinery needs to be paid. So imputed rent on land, imputed rent on machinery needs to be paid. Then this is called the C2 formula. So C2 includes cost of input, family labor, and the imputed rent on land and machinery. A2 includes cost of input, FL is family labor. Now, the current system of MSP in the country is that we take A2 plus FL. So we take A2, cost of input, plus imputed cost of family labor. We multiply it by 1.5 and then we give the minimum support price. We multiply it by 1.5, we give minimum support price. This C2 has been the demand of various farmer organizations that along with FL also add these two and go to the C2 formula. We currently do not agree to the C2 formula as far as government policy is concerned. Government policy accepts A2 plus FL into 1.5. This is how you calculate MSP. The second question with regards to MSP is how do you pay it? So there is minimum support price. You have decided, let's say, that everyone who is selling wheat should get rupees 2000 per ton. So rupees 2000 per 100 kg of wheat must be given. There are three ways. Firstly, you can force buyers, even private buyers, you can say that I am forcing you, you cannot buy below this cost. Second method is that you can say that I will do price deficiency payment. You can sell to a private buyer, not a problem. You sell to a private buyer at 1800 rupees per ton. You give me this receipt and I will pay you the extra 200 rupees. So I will do price deficiency payment. Third option is I can do direct purchase, that come and sell to the government itself. Come and sell to the Food Corporation of India. We are doing a direct purchase. These are the three methods of actually implementing minimum support price. Now, this forcing of buyers happens in the case of sugarcane. When a fair and remunerative price is issued, sugar mills cannot buy sugarcane below this fair and remunerative price. This direct purchase is also called open procurement. Open procurement happens mostly in our country only for rice and wheat, and it is done by the Food Corporation of India, mainly in the states of Haryana and Punjab. Price deficiency payments are given for all other crops. Now let us look at the policy level of MSP. At the policy level, MSP or minimum support price is calculated by the Commission on Agricultural Cost and Prices on the basis of 1.5 times into A2 plus FL formula. Then it is approved by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, and on the basis of this, there can be open procurement, there can be price deficiency payment, or there can be private procurement. This is how MSP is actually getting implemented in the country today. Now, these are the basics. These are actually things that we have to read for prelims. The real question comes now. There are two questions in front of us. One, is MSP a good idea? So I'll write the questions here and we'll answer all of them. Firstly, is MSP essentially a good idea? Does it have certain issues? Does it have certain advantages? Second, is there a better way to give support to farmers? Is there another way rather than MSP? The third question is, currently MSP through this process is issued through an executive order every year. Should I actually legalize MSP? Should I make it legal? This is the next question. So we will look at all of these issues. Okay, one more issue is, what formula should I actually use? These are the four major issues in front of MSP. Now, why is this very important this year? Because in the farmers' protest, there was a lot of demand of legalizing MSP. So we'll look at this issue in detail now. Firstly, what are the issues surrounding MSP? Here, I want you to participate. I'm giving you 2 minutes. You know what the process is now, right? One more thing I'd like to tell you. In this process, MSP is given for 23 crops only. It is given for 23 crops only, and mainly it is given for rice and wheat. Now tell me, you have 2 minutes, and tell me what are the issues with regards to minimum support price. Good. Diversification is a major issue. Think about it. We are saying that we will give you this cost, we will give you this price, regardless of whatever happens in the market. Yes, it does not consider the demand. Very good. I am fairly impressed with all of you. अगर आप इतना खुद से सोच पा रहे हो, if I'm reading the chat, I mean cumulatively पढ़ रहा हूं मैं, but I'm fairly impressed. Now, the first issue of MSP is it is given only in a few states and for a few crops. Then the second issue is it hinders the process of crop diversification. Why? Because if you have promised MSP on a particular crop, why would someone want to grow a different crop? Now for this, we will read about a case study that compares wheat on one side and oilseeds and pulses on the other side. For wheat, the government does not allow import. Actually, you can't ban import. They have given a 40%, they have a 40% import duty. The actual rate of return of wheat that is coming in states of Punjab and Haryana, MSP might be calculated on A2 and FL, but the yield is very high. So the actual return they are getting on wheat is even higher than C2 plus 50%. So you are getting a huge return, right? And what is the other thing? In wheat, there is also focus on R&D. Research and development and extension services are strong. If we consider the case of oilseeds and pulses, firstly, there is no import duty. When R&D is done in oilseeds, things like GM mustard, they are not allowed. There is a pro-consumer policy. And actually, oilseeds and pulses, even though MSP is announced, they are not procured properly. So since they are not procured properly, MSP is, although it is announced, oilseeds and pulses are not procured properly. Even today, India has import dependence on oilseeds and pulses. Despite increasing the MSP for oilseeds and pulses, our import duty continues to be there. Then, what was the main idea of getting MSP? That it will get farmers to have a higher income. But the data shows that farmer income is much higher in the fields of horticulture, in the allied sector. Here there is no MSP, but the actual farmer income is 3 to 4 times that is coming through the rice wheat system. Then, if I am giving you MSP, I am actually giving you a particular agricultural subsidy. I am promising that regardless of the market demand, you are going to get this price. This then comes in violation of my promise at the World Trade Organization of de minimis limits, that I cannot go beyond 10% as far as agricultural subsidies is concerned. I breach this de minimis limit every year, and then I have to go through the issues of peace clause. I have to invoke the peace clause every year because I am breaching the de minimis limits. Then, if I am paying MSP for a crop that actually does not have a demand, so market does not have a demand, but I am paying. So who is taking that burden? Market price of wheat is 1600 rupees per quintal. I am paying 2000 rupees per quintal. The burden or the fiscal burden of the state is fairly high. This becomes a problem. Now the other issue with regards to MSP is there is an excessive focus on it. Why? Because in our agricultural policy, the focus is mainly on price interventions. Because our market failures are there. We have poorly competitive markets. Our non-price interventions would be research and development, fertilizer research, pesticide changing, going for organic production. That is not happening. Our excessive focus then in agriculture comes on price-based interventions. Then, if we look at the growth of the agricultural sector, the growth of the agricultural sector is mainly happening due to horticulture. And in horticulture, again, there is no minimum support price. So without minimum support price in this sector, agricultural growth mainly happens here. Then, another issue of price realization comes here because the production is not demand linked. So farmers are not producing what is being demanded in the market. Farmers are producing whatever MSP they are getting for. So they will produce for MSP, but not produce for the market. Then, even with all of these things, there is a challenge that not all farmers are getting this benefit. Only 6% of the farmers actually get the benefit of APMC, and we have discussed this issue when we talked of the benefit of MSP. We discussed this issue when we spoke about the APMC. Then, the other issue with regards to MSP that we've already seen is the formula. What formula do we adopt? Okay, so MSP has various issues. Now, the next thing we have to understand is the issue with the C2 formula. This was a major demand of the current farmers' protest. They said that C2 is something that you need to have MSP at. Now, what are the issues of going for the C2 formula? Firstly, again, it is not demand linked. And if you increase the MSP this much, there might be a market collapse. Why will there be a market collapse? Because if you cannot sell, if you given C2 as a floor price, remember this is the basic floor price. Every other procurement technically has to happen above this price. If you've given C2 as the floor price, private traders will simply not buy any produce. Why? Because they will be unable to sell it in the open market because there is not enough demand. So no private trader is going to pay more then he is going to get from the market, right? So there is going to be a market collapse. Even if you go for a deficiency price payment, you say, okay, private traders, you procure at whatever cost, we will pay the deficiency price, what we saw. Even then it is going to be a problem. Why is it going to be a problem? Because it will be a huge burden on the state, even more burden than it exists today. Then if we go to C2, it also impacts our export competitiveness. If our prices of agricultural produce are high, why will somebody want to import from India? There are various options in the world. Okay. Now we have to understand the issue of legalizing of MSP. Should MSP be legalized? Now, if you will get a question on this, you will need points on both. That yes, there might be some arguments for legalizing MSP, but mostly the arguments are against legalizing of MSP. Now, the people who are in favor of legalizing MSP, what do they say? They say that the actual burden, they say that ये जो बात हो रही है, that there is a huge burden of MSP on the country, वो actual burden काफी कम है, because Indian agricultural production is close to 15 lakh crores. Out of this, 5 lakh crores gets lost to wastage. 10 lakh crore remains. In this 10 lakh crore, 5 lakh crore is procured by the government. 5 lakh crore is procured by the private sector. This private sector generally pays 25% less than MSP. So even if you have to legalize MSP, you will only have to do this price deficiency payment, which will come to 1.5 lakh crore. And 1.5 lakh crore was foregone by the government when they reduced the corporate tax from 30% to 25%. So the idea here is that they say that yes, it is possible for you to have, MSP, because legalized MSP, because the actual burden is very low. Then they say that if you legalize MSP, it will actually lead to farmer income and they will invest. If you legalize MSP, it will also lead to crop diversification. How? Because now MSP is legal for all crops. So every single crop is now going to have MSP production. So people will not focus on rice and wheat alone. Then we can become self-sufficient with regards to oil seeds and pulses, because even for oil seeds and pulses now, there is going to be a legalized MSP. The other argument that is made is that there are things like the Minimum Wages Act. Now there is the Minimum Wages Act. Minimum Wages Act होने के बाद भी there is production happening, industrial labor is working. So if there is the Minimum Wages Act, there can be legalization of MSP also. But these arguments, in my opinion, are very shallow arguments. If you are asked this question, the actual answer to this question is that no, MSP should not be legalized because it is a subsidy. You cannot legalize a floor price. Now, what are the arguments for not legalizing MSP? Firstly, any product in the world, when it is sold, it has to be sold through a certain price discovery mechanism. If price discovery is not happening, if you've legalized MSP, there is no price discovery, right? Even if you legalize it, the 23 crops that you actually pay MSP for are only 28% of India's agricultural production. So this is not the answer to India's farm distress. Then legalizing it means that all procurement now has to be done at MSP. If it is not done at MSP, it is a crime. So it will be a logistical disaster and a fiscal nightmare. Why? Because private traders will not buy. Government now has to buy. Logistically, it is a problem. Fiscally, it is a problem. Then, if you go for price deficiency payments and you legalize them, there is a chance of collusion between the private trader and the farmer. So he will say to the farmer that MSP is 2000 rupees. Government legally ensures that price deficiency payments are going to happen. You sell your produce to me at 1000 and get 1000 from the government, and we will collude and have an excess together. So there is chances of nexus between the trader and the farmer. Then it creates artificial market distortions. So 1 year when MSP is raised for a particular product, all farmers will want to only produce that particular product. So what happens is, let's say there is a shortage of tomatoes this year. Government decides to increase the MSP. Now everyone starts growing tomatoes. All farmers now decide to start growing tomato. Next year, there is a glut of production of tomato in the market. So there is too much tomato now, more than we can sell. This is known as the cobweb phenomena. Because, why is this happening? Because there is an external control to your idea of market dynamics. So you are not letting enough price discovery happen through supply and demand dynamics. Okay. Then what are the other problems? We have seen already that MSP benefits only a small number of farmers, not all farmers. Only 23 crops, that is 28% of the production. Then again, the same issues, that there are issues with regards to the formula and issues with regards to the fact that other sectors of agriculture, such as horticulture, etc., are growing much more as far as MSP is concerned. Because horticulture does not have MSP, but its growth rate in agriculture is much higher than the cropping sector. This is the idea. Now, see, MSP is a subsidy. You can't legalize or guarantee that there is going to be a subsidy. But if you say that I can't guarantee and legalize that there is going to be a subsidy, Indian agriculture is currently in distress. I think all of you will agree that Indian agriculture is not remunerative. So what is the solution here? What is the solution to the MSP problem? You can't legalize it, but you have to give income support to the farmers. They deserve it. So the first argument here is, do not give price support. Because price support artificially distorts the market and prevents crop diversification. Instead of price support, give income support. Income support such as PM Kisan. That all farmers are going to get 2,000 rupees every quarter. So 6,000 rupees a year in 3 installments, so that everyone gets income support. Now they can grow whatever they want. And their price will be determined as per the market demand. MSP is issued, please don't ask, ये तो prelims के question है, but ठीक है, MSP is issued before the Kharif season, before the cropping season. Before the Kharif and Rabi season, it is issued. Now, price support की जगह they say you have to give income support. Income support के साथ you give insurance support. Because here there is artificial distortion, but here every farmer is going to get 6,000 rupees a year, right? Now that support is enough for them to grow their income, and then whatever produce they are doing, that will be discovered at the price discovery level, at the demand and supply dynamics. Now, the second solution to this problem is that it is not only price that is the fact that should be our major factor in agricultural policy. We need to focus on non-price interventions. Non-price interventions include high yielding variety of seeds, mechanization, organic farming, the idea of research and development, and extension workers. This is what we need to focus on. Price support is the last measure to improve a sector. If you have to give price support, give income support, and you go for non-price measures. Thirdly, they say that the Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices is currently not able to do their job. Why? Because ideally, MSP should be determined on demand, supply, terms of trade of agriculture, domestic prices, international prices, and many other factors. So they say that this CACP should be replaced by an agricultural tribunal, and the decision for MSP should be taken like a judicial decision is taken, or rather a quasi-judicial decision is taken, taking in all these factors after you have given income support and insurance. Okay. Now, if I start giving income support, there are going to be certain problems. Of course, it is going to be avoiding distortions. We know farmers are in a buyer's market, so they do need support. We've talked about that when we talked about APMCs. But in income support, there is going to be inclusion and exclusion errors. All farmers are going to get this income support, every single one. Now, some people don't actually need this. That is the problem. But still, economically speaking, to not distort the open market, income support is a much better idea. And this is how the Chinese have also grown. Okay. So if you get a question on MSP, you should know, अगर मुझे MSP पढ़ना हो मेंस के लिए, मुझे क्या क्या पता होना चाहिए? What is it? What is it includes? How is it calculated? How is it paid? Why was it brought? We have seen the argument of the Green Revolution. Then with MSP, I need to know the issues with regards to MSP. Should I legalize it? If not, is income support a better solution? And what dynamics are there with regards to income support? And we have now read all of these dimensions. I don't think this is going to be a problem now for you, right? So we've sort of focused and understood the idea of MSP. Now, the next topic that we're going to read is actually something that you are going to teach me. Okay, because I have already spoken about this in a lot of detail, and we have covered agriculture at all levels. So we are going to now read about why Indian agriculture is in distress. Indian agriculture is not growing, it is in distress. Okay. Now, what are the major reasons for Indian agriculture being in distress, or what are the major manifestations? The fact is that its growth rate is not competitive. We already know that Indian agriculture has lagging research and development. There is a lack of a long-term policy perspective. These things are there. So if we talk of agrarian distress, it is actually spoken about in two ways. One is macro level distress. Macro agrarian distress. One is micro agrarian distress. Macro agrarian distress happens. Why? Because the share of the workforce in Indian agriculture is close to 43%. Share of GDP is close to 18%. So 43% of the population of the country is only generating 18% of the GDP. Productivity in Indian agriculture is declining. There is going to be an issue of groundwater that we have already seen. And as we know, as we read in when we were reading land reforms, 89% farmers now are small and marginal. At the micro level, there are issues of farm loans and the demand of farm loan waiver. There is the issue of farmer suicide and the issue of migration from agriculture to, or from rural areas and leaving agriculture and coming to urban areas. Solving this problem would require the doubling of farmers' income. Okay. Now, if you have read properly, this is not going to be a problem for you. So you will teach me. Now you tell me, what are the causes of agrarian distress in India? Causes of agrarian distress, you have 2 minutes. Now let's see how well you have read agriculture. स्टार्ट करो ना यार इनपुट से. Fragmented land holding, stagnation of production, irrigation being a problem, lack of access to credit, lack of mechanization. I want this level of fluency when you get a broad question like this. All right. So देखो, if we have to read the causes of agrarian distress, right? It is not something which should generally now create a problem for us, because we have read in the particular order. So in the particular order, we will think there are input reasons, there are production reasons, there are marketing reasons. And you wrote this answer also. The answer you wrote was removing input constraints for increasing agricultural productivity. Same thing you have to write here, right? But you have to write across the supply chain. So this is not a problem, right? If you look at your notes, the same thing is given. I'll just show you. So we've read macro and micro levels of agrarian distress. There are issues pre-harvest with regards to land, with regards to production, with regards to irrigation, with regards to credit, with regards to input cost. There are over-reliance of monsoon, presence of weeds and pests, non-diversification, market fluctuation, lack of market opportunities, lackadaisical implementation of policies. For example, Model APMC Act has not been adopted, inadequate infrastructure. Now, if you have written this, you have written the causes of agrarian distress. The next logical question becomes impacts of agrarian distress. This also I will expect that it is something that you should be able to write. So again, you have 2 minutes. Think about the impact of agrarian distress in India. Who all are facing that impact? Now, again, this should not be a problem for you. We have read enough for you to write this answer. Okay. Now, again, we can write on the basis of stakeholders, but what I wanted was to give you certain data on these points. So that data is available in your notes, and this data is important. If you get a question like this, I have divided it into 4 stakeholders: farmers, village, cities, and the government. Now, the data that is important here, the rise in farmer suicides. So, about 11,000 suicides in 1 year. This is the distress level that we are facing. 52% of all agricultural households are in debt. 1/5 of all agricultural households are below the poverty line. There is low price realization to the farmer. As per a survey that was conducted by CSDS, 76% of farmers actually want to leave agriculture. And then what impact will it have on our food security? At the villages, there is happening rural to urban migration. Ghost villages are being created, and it is leading to feminization of agriculture. Because of rural to urban migration, our cities are facing the problem of over urbanization and facing the problem of very high food inflation because the agriculture sector is in distress. If agriculture sector is in distress, our agricultural exports will be affected, our human development index will be affected, and the structural transformation of the economy is something that we're going to miss out on. Correct? I hope these things are understood. Now, we read that 52% of agrarian households are in distress and there are 11,000 farmer suicides. So, first, let us read about agricultural loans. Usually, close to the election year, some parties promise loan waivers. They promise that loans will be waived off. Is it something that we should do? Is it something we should not do? Now you have to think of arguments on both sides. Are loan waivers a good idea or are they a bad idea? You have 2 minutes. You can think in these 4 stakeholders. So, in the immediate term, farmers get certain relief from loan waivers. See, farmers are in a vicious cycle of indebtedness. Every year they are in debt. So once you waive their loans off, they can have a fresh start. They get immediate relief. If their loans are waived off, see, if a farmer has taken a loan from a bank and he has not repaid it, in the future, he will not get another loan, but if he gets a loan waiver, he will then have access to formal credit once again. Now, for the banks, it helps the banks clear their non-performing asset loans for once. For the society, it ensures food security. And the state has a certain moral obligation. So state has a certain moral obligation to look towards the sector that is in distress. These are the arguments in favor. But obviously, more arguments can be found against loan waivers. Firstly, it creates a moral hazard. See, now this is how you use keywords. We all know what this means. It means that farmer will not want to repay the loan back. But rather than writing like this, I will write it creates a moral hazard. It erodes healthy credit culture. So the idea of healthy credit culture, that credit is given, then it is repaid, it gets eroded. Then it does not solve the root cause of the problem. The root cause remains unaddressed. Then the impact is uncertain. There is no guarantee that it will have a certain impact. And lastly, what about landless laborers and sharecroppers? Their problems are not solved because they are not landed people, but they are the ones who are in most distress. Now, from the banks, again, healthy credit culture is eroded. So NPAs in the long term get increased. Why? Because the banks think that, okay, they will give loan waiver anyway. So even if ideally a bank is supposed to do due diligence before giving a loan to a person, but they will not do due diligence. Why? Because they feel that the loan will be waived off. Then in the society, it is prone to the idea of corruption. Why? Because there will be inclusion and exclusion errors. And if we look at the state side, you are suddenly infusing so much cash into the farming system, it might create inflation. You are not addressing the root cause. If you are bearing this burden, what happens to the idea of fiscal deficit and fiscal consolidation? Then the moral responsibility of the state is also to reform the agricultural sector. But the idea is it is a very easy tool to give loan waivers and not think about the root cause of Indian agricultural problems. Right? It will also become a vote bank tool, 100%. Correct? So this is the idea of loan waivers. Now, what is the ideal way to deal with loan waivers or the idea of credit? So if you look at the idea of credit, NABARD has given certain recommendations. Although we've read about credit in detail, just read these recommendations once. They have said that we need to have institutional credit. We need to recognize that there are non-institutional lenders. So there are money lenders. We need to recognize them and we need to regulate them. Then they are saying that you create a farmer distress index on the basis of various factors, and then you see what particular distress is there and you address it as such. You make a credit guarantee fund for agricultural loans, the way there is an MSME guarantee fund, but you don't waive off loans blindly. You have to increase farmers' access to the market and make better infrastructure for better price realization in agriculture. Then ultimately, like we read, credit is also a function of insurance. So if you are effectively deploying crop insurance, the indebtedness in the agricultural sector will anyway stop. Similarly, now let us read about the idea of farmer suicides. Now, if someone asks you the reasons for farmer suicides, whatever causes we have read in agrarian distress can be the causes for farmer suicides, because farmer suicide is a result of agrarian distress. But there are certain other important causes that we must know about with regards to farmer suicides specifically. So what is happening is, firstly, let's look at some data. So we have already seen that in farmer suicide, there are 11,000 suicides in the farming sector, and 5,000 of these were farmers and 6,000 were agricultural laborers. So agricultural laborers have a greater rate of distress. Now the other factor we need to know here is that there is a regional factor. So this regional factor is controlled by the fact that there is more suicides happening in this area of Vidarbha, Maharashtra and northern Karnataka. And why is it happening here? Because the traditional agroecological cropping pattern of going for maize and millets was replaced by cash crops. The soil and the ecology of that region did not support it. There were distressed sales, low price realization, and faulty MSP policies that ultimately led to more suicides happening in this region. Now, reasons are same as before, right? The fact that there is non-diversified agriculture, soil productivity is decreasing, we are dependent on monsoon, agricultural price is falling, input cost is high, insurance is not given. So therefore, there is a threefold problem. In Marathwada, there is the issue of distress sales. There is not enough R&D. BT cotton and crops like that are failing now. Example of whitefly attacks in Punjab. Farm mechanization costs are high. Now, the way forward, if you have to write for farmer suicides, I have drafted it in the form of welfare, that we have to do water diversification. We have to ensure better price realization. We have to understand about dryland farming techniques, because these three areas where mainly the suicides are happening, these are dryland areas. We need financial security through mixed farming and institutional credit. We have to do agricultural marketing reforms, R&D on pest resistant crops, and we have to expand crop diversification. And you can remember this as welfare. Now, the last topic that I had to teach you today is the idea of doubling farmers' income. But we have already read so much about it that I don't expect that you are going to face a problem as far as doubling farmers' income is concerned, right? So I will just ask you to go through the notes once. I'll just show them to you. It is not something that we have not read before. It should not be a problem for you anyway, because you've also written an answer on it. And I will be repeating the same points if we go for doubling farmers' income. It is the same idea: input, production, and marketing. So there is a need for doubling farmers' income. Similar things that we've written: indebtedness, land fragmentation, high input costs, poverty, population pressure, low price realization. Then you have to mention the Dalwai Committee, and these are some of the main recommendations that the Dalwai Committee has given, right? I just expect that you read all of this once. There is nothing that is written here that I have not taught you before, right? Nothing is here that I have not taught you before. So land reforms, MSME linkage, institutional credit, insurance penetration, we have already read this. Now, in the Niti Aayog Strategy for New India document, this was released in 2018, there are 3 chapters on agriculture. I have given you a 1-page summary of these 3 chapters. These are also some things we have already read: modernizing of agriculture, resource utilization and soil health cards, extension services, diversification and value chain development. Then there are the steps we have already taken for doubling farmers' income. So I will just expect you to read these things once. There is nothing here that we have not discussed. All right. Now, in agriculture, finally, we are left with a couple of topics. One is the topic of crop diversification and cropping patterns. Linked to this is the idea of public distribution system. And linked to this, or rather linked to this overall, is the idea of agricultural policy in India. But these are not big topics. We have already studied most of agriculture. So this is something we are going to do in the next class on Tuesday, and we will start with environment. Tuesday in environment, we are going to read about climate change, and in one class, I will explain to you everything that you need to know about climate change for the mains examination. Everything with regards to the impacts of climate change, the idea of mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage, the international negotiations, and everything around climate change that we have to study, we will do in this one class. Okay. Now, I hope you are enjoying this so far. The one pagers for agriculture, other than this topic, which I will do on Tuesday, will be uploaded maximum by tomorrow. And from those one pagers, I think I was making them today. It will be approximately 25 to 30 pages, and in those 25 to 30 pages, you will be able to revise the entire agriculture sector, right? So I hope you've enjoyed agriculture with me. We are now going to switch to environment. GS3 is a very dynamic paper. It's a very diverse paper, but I hope you are enjoying this, and I hope you are understanding. And from reading your chat, I'm definitely able to understand that you are now confident as far as agriculture and internal security is concerned. I think we started this on 1st July, right? It is 3rd August. So it has been 1 month of alternate day classes. In 1 month, I hope that you are now fairly comfortable with security and agriculture, and whatever question on security and agriculture you get, you will be able to answer. Right? All right. So we will just do the issue of PDS, crop diversification and agri policy next time, and we will move on to the issue of environment. Thank you very much for your patient listening. You have a good evening.